show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live podcast. And it's now.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the 17th and year-end edition of the Full Mount MMA.com's official podcast, TFM Live. I am Brian Coyle, joined alongside me to close out 2015, as always, Sean Stanley. Sean, how are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. The sun is shining. The sky is blue. It's a fantastic year-end.
What is it, 75 degrees in Miami?
It is officially on the Sean Stanley phone weathered app, 84 degrees.
God, man, could you send some of that my way? Because now it's cold again in New Jersey, and I mean, it's going to rain. And they put college football on New Year's Eve for some reason. It doesn't make any sense, but that's a podcast for another time. Instead, we're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff we have to talk about before we close out the new year. On Saturday, we have Condit and Robbie Lawler, which could be the fight of the year, the second day of 2016, which I'm really excited about. We'll give out our year-end awards. We got 3 of them. 2 are already up by the time you'll be listening to this. Probably 3 of our awards: the TFM Fight of the Year, the TFM Fighter of the Year, and the TFM Breakout Star of the Year. So we'll talk about that. We've got some news regarding the Risen fight card, because that's happening in Japan, believe it or not, and it's a little shocking development in regards to Fedor Emelianenko, but not really.
Yeah, it's a real big shock.
Yes, and then I just feel like we should make some bold predictions about 2016. And
now when you say bold, do you mean bold or just bold?
I think you put the emphasis on the old.
All right.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but let's jump into our awards right away. This is the FullMountMMA.com's official panel of awards this year. And I'll start off with what our first award posted, which when we were debating this internally, I thought about Arlovsky and Brown for the fight of the year because they had that crazy first round. And there were a couple others that were like, oh my God, it was an amazing fight. But could you really argue Lawler McDonald? I don't think so. It was by definition one of the best fights I've ever seen from a striking standpoint. It was technical in the beginning. It devolved into a brawl. They were swinging, broken noses, bleeding, like faces. Guys were toughing it out. And Lawler somehow looked like he was about to lose. Comes back, guts it out. That's why they call him one of the toughest guys in mixed martial arts, period. And he goes out and beats Rory McDonald in the 5th and final round of their title fight at UFC 189. It was kind of, the term gets thrown around a lot, like people's main event, like the fight fans' main event. That's what it was for this card, because I'm obviously McGregor Mendez. But man, this is like a top 5 fight in history, let alone the top fight this year. What do you think? No,
I agree with the fact that, you sat there, you always say, let's see the fighters leave it leave it all in the ring. And,
they did.
They did, and more. McDonald was, his nose, and he ended up in a hospital. And then, out of respect, you get the tweet later on, or the Instagram, I can't remember which one it was, one of those social media things, with both of them in the hospital. And, it was everything. Not only did it live up to everything in the cage, but we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
People are still talking about the fight today.
It was amazing. Just a back and forth brawl. McDonald was like locked in the beginning. Lawler was taking so much punishment. He was throwing it back. And then, the turning point, obviously, Rory McDonald breaking his nose, because Lawler's got like meat clubs for fists at this point. And it was just like, that's a fight of the night. That's a deserving performance from both men. And this is why I love the UFC a little bit more than boxing, which I grew up loving. Rory McDonald lost that fight. But Rory McDonald is not going to suffer from losing that fight because that was an amazing fight. He put it all on the line, and his body broke. It's not like he broke.
No, yeah, exactly. That's what happened. It's just he took so much punishment that once he took that punch, and then it was just that was it. Just couldn't take any more.
Yeah, it was just way crazy. Like that. I can't believe like when you look at that fight, the straight amount of punishment that both men took. It's outstanding.
Yeah, you have to remember Lawler opened up his nose like I think in the second round, and he just kept, the jabs, the striking right to the nose, and then I mean your body can only take so much before it's going to tell you, hey,
yeah,
that's enough.
Yeah, it was just incredible. And I mean we get Lawler this Saturday, January 2nd at UFC 195, which I mean is going to be another great thing. And we'll talk about, when we preview that fight, how his ability to take punishment, at least in my mind, can like help him, but also kind of harm him in the same way. And not just because, he's getting kicked in the face. There's a whole, like, it's good that he can do that, but he doesn't want to take too much of it. So that's our fight of the year. Really no arguments there from anyone. I mean, of course, like I said, Brown Arlovsky had that crazy round, but I think that's easily the fight of the year. Also, I mean, another unanimous decision on our part. The fighter of the year, the TFM fighter of the year, it's Conor McGregor. I mean, were you really expecting somebody else? Because McGregor, 3 wins. He beats Seaver, he beats Mendez, he beats Aldo. 2 championship victories, if you want to label the
interim fight.
The interim fight a title win. And I always go back to July of last year. We're not here to take part. We're here to take over. And the prophetic Mystic Mac, whatever you want to call him, Conor McGregor's called a shot every single time. He's made the UFC a hell of a lot of money every single time he's fought. He's taken them into the new year bigger than they ever were. They've posted record profits. And that's thanks to Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we saw Rousey home top 1 million pay-per-view buys. How much is this one we're going to make when it's all said and done, him and Aldo? Because, I mean, I saw people who I never thought would be watching a UFC fight wanting to buy this fight and be like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. Not only has McGregor delivered inside the octagon, he's delivered outside of it. Yep. And it's plain and simple, he's the dude. He's the fighter of the year.
Yeah, not only in the cage, but outside the cage. He's the face of the UFC right now. He's their marketing campaigns. He knows how to market himself outside of the UFC. I don't know if some of that is, I mean, of course, it's the UFC machine behind him, but he's also good outside of the UFC with keeping, you definitely hear about him once a month, once every couple of weeks. He doesn't get out of that public eye enough to where you forget about him, and he doesn't let you forget about him.
Yeah, and I mean, McGregor's personality obviously holds a lot of weight to this.
Yep.
And I mean, if you go through you can look up the top 10 quotes from Conor McGregor on the internet, and this kind of personality is what the UFC needs, and they need more of it.
Well, that and somebody and he backs it up in the cage too, so that helps tremendously. It's not the Chael Sonnen. I can talk, but not really get inside the cage and. I can hold my own, but Conor McGregor backs it up and he delivers. And I think that's really what people have come to know about Conor McGregor, at least so far. I mean, again, not many people can say, hey, I'm going to knock out Aldo and go out there and do it. And he did it. And I think it has a lot to do with his personality and the way that he gets inside people's heads and it throws them out of their game plan. So I think he's a master manipulator. I'll put it that way.
And hell, I mean, when you get Chuck Liddell to say, I don't like your talk, but I love the way you fight, kind of a big deal. I mean, Liddell is one of the legends of the UFC, obviously.
That might be the nicest thing he'll ever say about him.
I know. So when you get – people may not like his attitude, which, I mean – I personally love it because it brings you back to the days of, boxers talking so much crap. And then the promos and wrestling and everything that's been revolving around combat sports and the theatrics of Rocky movies. And, it just kind of preys on that mantra. I mean, some people hate it. But when you, like you said, when you watch this guy in the octagon, he is dangerous. He is lethal. I mean, another thing he said, he's here. I'm here to whoop ass and look good, and I'll be doing one and doing the other at the same damn time. So, I mean, a little bit of Roddy Piper influence in that quote, which I also
definitely
love. But McGregor's the guy.
He oozes that heel roll.
Yeah, and
people are starting to like him because of that.
Yeah, and as much as people don't want to say, everyone loves a good bad guy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Everyone, the bad guys in movies, in wrestling,
that's who everybody ultimately wants to be.
Yes, because they're inherently more interesting. It's just the way it is. And the guy who knocks off McGregor, whether it's this year coming up, whether it's next year, will ride that wave, and it'll be great. And I think at this point, McGregor needs just a couple more wins before he can reach his peak, and then they can kind of take some of that rub, put it on somebody else, whoever beats him or not, and then you'll have two studs and a rivalry and all that kinds of business. But it's Conor McGregor. He's our fighter of the year. If you want to debate about it, tweet at us at the Full Mount, at BCoyle11, at SS Sports Talk. You're wrong, but I'd love to have a conversation about this.
Yeah,
I'd love to interact.
This is the one I can almost 100% assure we will not have somebody say something.
Yeah, unless they hate Conor McGregor. But guess what? You're talking about Conor McGregor.
But then who else do you put in the conversation right now?
I mean,
who else do you put in that conversation? As far as
Holly Holm
fighter of the
Rousey?
year. Yeah, but that's what
Cormier?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about him for our next category, but I mean, is he really a breakout star?
Yeah.
Because he finally captures. Rockhold over Weidman. But let's move on to our last category, because there was a lot of internal debate about this. We gave it to Holly Holm, our TFM breakout star of the year. I was of the opinion of somebody else. I got outvoted. But let's talk about Holm before we get to any other possible contenders. When you beat Ronda Rousey, you put yourself on the map.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who Holly Holm was outside of the sport.
And the way she beat Ronda Rousey, too.
The absolute dominance on her part. And, I mean, we could go back and play the tape on one of our old shows. I labeled it as a 0% chance that Holly Holm would win.
I did a 0.01%.
So you were right. That's the moral of the story. Never go with definitive answers.
Yeah.
Sports. But when you look at this whole scenario, there was nothing that indicated Holly Holm was ready for that fight.
No.
Period.
Not at all.
Watching back her old fights, it was snooze fest.
Yeah, it was a split decision over Pennington, and then a unanimous decision over Renault. And she didn't look good in either one of them.
No, but all of a sudden, training with John Jones, Michael John Greg Jackson, Carlos Condit, who fights this week. It's a thing. It's the best camp in probably the entire world right now.
Yeah.
With no shade in regards to Faraz Sahabi, a TriStar, but you can make the argument that she's deserving of this award just based on the fact that she set the world on fire.
Yes.
For 2 weeks, it was Holly Holm, Holly Holm, Holly Holm, Holly Holm, Holly Holm, and she was on every single channel, every single morning show, all that. And then hopefully we get the rematch in July. But is she gonna fight in March against Miesha Tate? There's lots of moving parts to this, and we don't know. It all depends on Ronda Rousey. I was of the opinion that we give it to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, based on the fact that she's won 3 title fights this year, and Joanna Champion, in my mind, is the next big star from the women's side and period in the UFC. She kind of got eclipsed by that whole media tour with Ronda Rousey. She was there in the background, kind of learning, kind of going through the machinations of the media and learning all this stuff. And she become more and more of a personality. She seems more outgoing in every interview she does. But regardless of that, she's a freaking warrior, man. 3 title fights. The striking is absurd. I remember she had 253 strikes in one of her fights this year, which is in a incredible a number.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense that you can be able to dominate like that. I mean, you can say what you want about the strawweight division right now. It's getting better and better. As we saw with Rose Namajunas basically destroying Paige Van Zandt. Excuse me, it was 220 strikes against Valerie Letourneau. Letourneau couldn't walk after that fight. Like, that leg was just completely done. And Jędrzejczyk broke her hand in that fight and was still fighting hard. Beating Jessica Penne, beating Carla Esparza, beating Claudia Gadelha at the end of 2014. That's the fight. I can't wait for that one. It's rumored that both of them are going to coach the newest season of Tough. So I think you're kind of going to get more and more of Jędrzejczyk, and I think she's going to become a bigger entity in 2016. And for me, like, she's could easily be the breakout star. I mean, we talked about a couple other people. Luke Rockhold unbeating the undefeated Chris Weidman. TJ Dillashaw could be thrown into there. There were so many championship changes. Like, you can make the argument for anybody who basically won a title this year, which is pretty insane. You make the argument for Cormier as well, the former Strikeforce champion, finally getting his title. But again, he didn't beat John Jones.
But I think a lot of this has to do with the popularity that UFC has taken on as well. As far as, because, like, for us, some of these names is, we knew what Cormier could do, but now that he's doing it in such a big platform now and things like that, it kind of, I guess, gives it more oomph as far as it goes, And like you said, I think, Joanna is a good option for this as well. But I just think that what Holm did, shocking the world, gives her that little bit of an edge.
That's understandable. Another name we talked about, Sage Northcutt, is based on the fact that the dude flipped into the hearts and minds of UFC fans with his first performance over a seemingly high Francisco Trevino because he tested positive for marijuana.
Hey, you know what? Hey, he's above the clouds in talent.
Like, really, dude? You could have come into your fight clean. He also came in overweight too, which is nice.
Oh, he had the munchies.
Yeah. So, but Northcutt, to me, let's do a little bit more before.
Well, I
get
agree.
there. 19
I
years
agree
old,
with the thing,
ton of
but
talent.
Look, his first fight was what, August?
Yeah. Oh no, September at UFC 192. Oh no, October at UFC 192 on the Cormier card.
Yeah, and then he fought again then he fought again in December, and now he's been added to January.
Yes. Yeah, which,
so, he's picking up that steam. You know what I'm saying? That was my whole thing with Sage Northcutt, is that, like, he was gone from what,
0 to 100.
0 to 100, and give it. I understand he's getting the backing of the UFC machine, and all it takes is one strike, and they could all come crushing down. But I just think he's got the world behind him right now, pushing him.
Against Cody Pfister, who.
Yeah, he has not. I understand he hasn't fought the best talent. I got you.
Mm-hmm. Andrew Holbrook, his next opponent, is 11-0.
I know you don't like Cody Pfister, so that's.
Well, but my argument here is, the guy couldn't make himself less likable in those UFC embeddeds. But Pfister came out with a smart game plan, kind of grounded him, kind of stifled Northcutt. And if we're expecting this crazy talent, he looked slow to start off, and it took him around to kind of get himself going, which he's 19 years old. I just want to cool our jets on everybody. So if he loses to Holbrook in Newark, or he loses the next couple fights, it's okay. He's got a long career ahead of him. He's 19 years old. He's going to have so many fights by the time he's in his prime. It's like absolutely ridiculous.
All right, fine, you win.
I'm just saying. I'm not getting the person that I want. So
yeah.
So Holly Holm, after much debate, is our TFM breakout star,
and much deserved, by the way, much deserved.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be excited to see what she does next. Whether she's fighting in March, whether she's fighting in April, whether she's fighting in July. Plenty of options open for her. let's take a quick break. We come back. We're gonna gather our predictions up for 2016 because it's always fun to make bold predictions. And I mean, if we're right, we look like geniuses. If we're wrong, they were bold predictions. So
we look like two guys on a podcast.
Yeah, it's like we're recording a podcast. Who knew? All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We come back. Bold predictions for 2016 on TFM Live, the official podcast of the FullMountMMA.com.
For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to the FullMountMMA.com. Now back to the TFM Live podcast. Here's Brian Coyle and Sean Stanley.
Welcome back, everybody, to the FullMountMMA.com's official podcast, TFM Live. I am Brian Coyle, along with Sean Stanley, of course, and we got some news to talk about before we get to our bold predictions, so sit tight for that. Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping are fighting on a UFC Fight Pass card in London on February 27th at the O2 Arena. That is happening because apparently Anderson Silva said on a conference call Tuesday, and this was reported by MMAfighting.com, but the report was denied, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Anderson Silva said the plan was to have me fighting in Brazil against I don't know who. But with this situation going on in Brazil economically and everything, the UFC decided to abort the event for now. So, excuse me, that's the first time I've sneezed on the podcast.
There's a first for everything, sir.
Yeah. So Silva was reportedly supposed to fight. I mean, the rumors that I heard were Vitor Belfort in Brazil on March 5th for the UFC 197. Apparently, the reports have indicated from MMAfighting.com and a couple other places, and Anderson Silva himself, that the event will no longer take place in Rio de Janeiro. UFC 197, I'm assuming, is not canceled. But this report was denied later that day. This was on Tuesday, that Sean Shelby, the matchmaker for the UFC, said the media is a joke. This is not true, which pretty strong words. I mean, they never typically like to mince words with the media, which is always good. And Dana White replied, "Amen," and quoted that tweet. I'm guessing they meant the fact that UFC 197 is not canceled, which, I mean, would make sense because why would they cancel a pay-per-view? But I'm not so sure that they're having this in Rio because I haven't heard much after it. And if Silva comes out and says they wanted to put him in Brazil, but they can't, and Guilherme Cruz, who reported the information from MMAfighting.com, is based in Brazil. So this is a whole tricky situation. I don't know exactly what's going on because there were rumors that it was going to be Verdum and Velasquez, and then that got kicked to the curb. And then I thought it would be Rafael dos Anjos against Khabib or Showtime Pettis or somebody of that nature in March. But then this kind of comes out, and we don't know exactly what's going on. So this is something to keep an eye on. But the news that broke on Christmas Eve, we're getting Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping fighting. That's pretty cool. What do you think about that whole scenario?
Not only is it cool, but I mean, you're getting it on a Fight Pass card.
You want to talk about a reason to buy Fight Pass?
I mean, it's almost, like we were talking about, you had your Van Zant and your Northcuts, and we're like, oh, this is a way to build them. Yeah. Now you have two established. I mean, I don't know if with at Silva, you could say, a legend in UFC. Bisping, not so much, but you got two great fighters on a Fight Pass card, and I mean, and that's just the top of it. So they're going to add around this thing.
You're going to get a couple other fights. The whole card has not been reported. But the thing is here, Anderson Silva was at one time the biggest fighter in the game. Period.
Yeah.
Like the best middleweight ever. He was absolutely phenomenal. He loses to Chris Weidman twice, breaks his leg, suspended for his male enhancement pills that he was using. it's a very like weird situation for Silva to come back from. But here's the thing: he's a star. He's a bona fide star. Bisping, a bona fide star, absolutely in Europe. I was always a fan of Bisping because Bisping was Conor McGregor before Conor McGregor happened. If you remember on The Ultimate Fighter, he was talking so much crap. He was
he was backing it up for a while.
And he was backing it up for a while. He couldn't reach the top of the mountain, but he was this blueprint that these European fighters and these loudmouth fighters were talking about. Also on that card, Gegard Mousasi and Talis Laitis is projected for that card. It hasn't been officially reported yet, but there were reports out there that was going to happen. Henry Briones and Brad One Punch Pickett is on that card. Jimmy Manua's Britain's own. He's on that card as well. So that's a fun card to see. Bisping, 37. Silva's getting up there as well. But this is like one of those like dream fights that you would never thought would actually happen, because like when are these two ever going to fight against each other? And this is kind of the perfect time. The perfect time to bring Silva back into the role. And it's not this gigantic stage for him and all this talk and swirling of the PED use and all that. And if Bisping beats Silva, you can shoot Bisping up into the top 4 of middleweight, and you can have him fight a Jacare, or you can have him fight a Weidman or something like that. And if Silva does, he shoots right back up. It's a win-win scenario for the UFC. I think it's going to be a pretty cool thing, especially on a Fight Pass card. It rewards UFC fans for getting Fight Pass, so I'd recommend getting Fight Pass, especially for this card. So bold prediction time, Sean. You said you had a good one before the show. We were doing our pre-show management and housekeeping. What you got? What's your bold prediction?
No, I'm not going to go straight out with my bold prediction. I thought we were going to work into it. Okay,
no. We're jumping right in. We're going to the deep end of the pool.
All right. Well, I say by the middle of this year, Conor McGregor will not be a champion in the UFC.
See, why we should have talked about this, because I am very of the opinion that Frankie Edgar has a legitimate shot at beating Conor McGregor in the Garden in April.
Let me rephrase this too because now I found a flaw in my prediction.
You found a flaw?
Yeah, because if he moves up in weight, he won't lose the belt. So, but then the fight with I say if he fights Frankie Edgar, Edgar will become the UFC champion. That's what I'll say.
Now that with the whole build up and the listeners were like, oh, that was really, but now I don't have a. All right, I'll make some. I can come up with some bold prediction on the spot.
Oh, I took yours.
Yeah, completely. I woke up this morning and I'm thinking about all right, I need a bold prediction for the show. I mean, I'm a big Frankie Edgar guy. The way he fights, I mean, Conor could lose.
No, definitely. That was my whole thing. But then I saw a hole in my plan, because if he takes the 155 fight and moves up, he can still be the champion at the middle of the year.
Yeah.
So I have to say when he fights Edgar.
Okay. All right. I got one for you.
You let me go first, all right? It's your fault.
I did, yeah. I threw you right in.
And I called it too, because I said I know we're probably gonna have the same lines of thinking.
Yes. I mean, not just because McGregor's fantastic. It's just I hope it doesn't happen that soon. But it could. I mean, doing all of this stuff, and if he tries to juggle the weight classes, it could have an impact on him.
But I don't think it's going to impact him and his popularity. I mean, I think the only way that can happen is if Edgar just totally, makes him look foolish. But I think it's going to be a great fight, and I just think it's going to be one of those fights where Edgar's going to get the upper hand, and it's going to a mistake or something like that. I don't think it's going to be a 13-second knockout. I don't think it's going to be.
See, I think it's going to be a decision fight.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But I don't know about McGregor going to a decision either. I mean, he throws, man, and sometimes he may. I don't know. It just depends. I mean, these 5-round fights, man, that's a lot of time for game plans to go out the window.
25 minutes is a long time in the octagon. All right. I got you. Holly Holm beats Ronda Rousey at UFC 200.
Ah, all right.
There's one. Because in my mind, Holm should be the favorite. There's no indication watching Rousey, of course, she dominated the entire division for so long. But when you get beat that bad and severely outclassed, it wasn't a fluke win.
No.
Holm knew exactly what she was doing. And Ronda was so geeked up. And just, if she continues on the path that she has with the coaching,
I was going to say, if she keeps that coaching and that team, that camp.
Which she is going to keep that camp.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
And that camp doesn't have a lot of, she's the biggest thing to come out of that camp. That and Travis Brown. And just watching back that fight and listening to her corner saying, "You're okay, you're doing great, champ. You're doing no, you're not doing great.
Yeah.
Fix what you're doing.
Stand in front of the boxer. Stand in front of the boxer. Good job. Good job. Keep it up."
Come on, man. It's a title fight. It's the biggest fight in UFC history.
The swelling will go down tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
Oh, it's okay. Keep standing in there. No, you're all right. Oh, you're bleeding. No, you're okay. Come on. For me, Holmes should be the out-and-out favorite there. And I think Rousey's got plenty of opportunities. If that happens, she doesn't need to fight anymore if she doesn't want to. She can do whatever she wants. But Ronda Rousey has to get back to what she does best, which is take people. George St. Pierre was not the most entertaining fighter in the history of the UFC. I feel confident in saying that. The first ever UFC fight that I watched was Dan Hardy and GSP. And GSP just made Dan Hardy look silly. And I watched it with my dad, and he was basically saying, "This is the most boring thing I've ever seen." But I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, he's turning him into a puddle. He can't do anything. That's what Rousey can do to people. She can break their arms. She can slide in and out. She can put people on the ground. She knows what to do. Do it. Don't try to become something you're not. Which, if she goes with this game plan and she wants to hit the mitts again, it works against Bethe Correia. It's not going to work against someone who's fought at 3 different weight classes in boxing. And speaking of that, don't be surprised if we get Cyborg Holm rumors if she beats Rousey, because Holm will go up. They'll do a catchweight bout because she's fought at higher weight classes. So that's a possibility as well. That could be one of my bold predictions. I don't know if this is a bold prediction. John Jones is taking back his belt. I think that's happening.
Does he take back that belt, or does he move up and take a belt?
I think he wins the light heavyweight belt, and I would not be surprised if he fights at heavyweight at the end of the year. Because, if just watching his training from the outside looking in, he's lifting a lot. A lot. 550-pound deadlifts a lot.
Like smart cars.
Yeah. And, Jones looks like he's going to come back better than ever. And, hell, if Cormier beats him, Daniel Cormier is our fighter of the year next year. Yeah. I'll give you the belt now.
Well, I wonder if some of his extra muscle is going to hurt John Jones a little bit, too.
That's the argument.
Yeah, because, sometimes you get a little bit quicker winded, your muscle, there's not that a lot. But again, we don't know what stretching he's doing. If I go in the gym and I start, deadlifting 550 and I start getting all bulked up, but these guys have been doing martial arts for so long that they're pretty flexible already, and you work that in with your workout. You can still be big and flexible. You don't have to be all jacked up and you can't move anything, but it's going to be interesting to see how it, the range and different things like that might affect him.
And also the way he can absorb punishment as well.
Yeah.
Tightens everything up.
Yeah, you tighten up. You get kicked in that leg and that thigh, and you got nothing but muscle there, and it knots up on you. It could be a long night.
That will be interesting. You got any other bold predictions, or is your McGregor one the only one worth telling?
Well, I was gonna say, he loses that belt, but I think he's got a chance of becoming a champion in another weight class.
See, and I'm more of the opinion that he's got a better chance of staying at 145 and being dominant than winning at 155. 155 is a murderer's row.
No, it is, but also you have to look at it this way. He's not going to have to cut weight going into those fights.
But
he's gonna be that much strong. To me, I'm looking at it. I mean, again, I don't know how big he actually gets to how much weight he has to cut to get to 145 normally. But now, if he's say 165 and he's got to lose 20 pounds, now he's only got to lose that 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. So he's still gonna be big for 155.
Yeah, I mean,
again, when I look at some of these guys, I'm like, how's that guy 155 when you see him on TV, and then when you see him in person, you're like, okay, I can see the 155. But when you look at him on TV, they look, they're like, wow, that's 155. Are you serious? But then so I think he's gonna come in with less, having to cut less. But then again, sometimes when you have to cut less, he might get lazier in some of his camps. So it's a double-edged sword. But I think he will have an opportunity to become champion in one weight class, but drop the belt in the other.
Just Anthony Pettis, Rafael dos Anjos, Khabib.
I'm not going to say he's going to hold the belt for a long time. I'm just saying he may have a belt.
But there's so many great matchups in lightweight. With McGregor's basically run through everybody in featherweight except Frankie. And then, of course, Max Holloway, if he wants to make that argument.
And we're even leaving out, hey, Nate Diaz might get the first shot at McGregor. Who knows?
See, that's the one. That's the fight I want.
on the inside, it is mine too, but that'll kill my predictions. Both of them.
Because when you look at it, Holloway wants another fight with him, and because Holloway's much different now than he was when he originally fought McGregor. Cowboy, Eddie Alvarez, Tony Ferguson's the one that kind of jumps out to me as well. Barbosa, Ferguson, Diaz, these are all guys lower in lightweight, but damn, those would be fun fights. It's why 155 is one of the most entertaining weight classes. Because these guys can just swing.
Yeah, everybody has that. Everybody has that chance, that puncher's chance.
And my other bold prediction, I got one more for you.
Oh, here we go. This is gonna
Thomas Almeida gets a title shot in 2016. The undefeated Brazilian bantamweight will get a shot at the title at 135.
All right.
He's a guy that has slowly been being built up as well. He's 21-0, 3 performances of the night, 1 fight of the night. Anthony Burchak, Brad Pickett, Evie Bullen, Tim Gorman are 4 UFC wins. And he's supposedly getting John Dodson next. That's the rumor around there. Dodson's moving up from 125. And kudos to Mighty Mouse for clearing out that division 7 times over.
You can only fight who they put you in the ring with.
Exactly. And he said in an interview with Sherdog, the headline was a little misleading, saying that he would move up to 135 if offered or whatever. He basically said, if they're going to pay me, yeah, sure, I'll fight guys at 135. If they pay me more, I'll do it. But
when you look at that 125 weight class, how many guys do you know that weigh 125?
Poof. It's a tough weight drop.
I look at that and I'm like, man, how dedicated are those guys to be able to do that?
You have to have a small frame.
And you have to be dedicated, man, to know that you can't, because at 125, there's not a lot that you can drop. If you get up to, your frame can't be that big anyways, where you can't drop 15 pounds.
And Mighty Mouse has come out and said he walks around 141.
No, so I guess maybe he does drop 15, but okay. But when I look at them at that fight or go into weigh-ins, you look at their body and it's like, where is he going to lose weight at? Where's the weight? Where do you lose the weight?
I always go with the way I think about it is, I weigh about 185. I'm 5'10", 185. And if I lost all of the weight, the extra weight that I would have, and was as cut as one of these fighters, I would probably be fighting at either 170 or 155. But going from 185 to 155 is an absolute 30 pounds. There's not 30 pounds of extra weight. I don't know how these guys do it.
No, well, that's also part of the problem with, we've seen in other organizations, not really UFC, maybe once or twice.
Championship.
Yeah, you see these fighters, having these complications or problems, and it happened, a couple times with UFC, but it doesn't seem as rampant as a problem there because I think they have the right, the staff, and I think they're monitored, and they probably got better coaching and camps as far as some of these guys go to, which some of them go to to the other fights as well. But you don't see it as much of a problem in UFC as you do in the others.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We got some plenty of bold predictions. We're gonna have to remember those, and when they happen, we'll mark them down. And you can play back the audio to sound how dumb I am or how smart you were.
How dumb I am.
And
it'll get announced tomorrow. It'll be Nate Diaz against McGregor at the at 200 or something, and then that'll blow both my predictions out the water.
Before we get to our preview of UFC 195, got some news for you out of the land of the rising sun, my friend.
Oh, way to use Rising. That's good. That's pretty good.
See, I got puns for days. The Risen Fighting Federation held their first ever event, headlining and I'm going to use the word-for-word description by Brett Okamoto at ESPN, the iconic Russian heavyweight Fedor Emelianenko. He successfully came out of retirement.
Got to sell those clicks.
And in a fight that was essentially over before it began. Emelianenko, the 39-year-old, took out a blatantly overmatched opponent in Jadeep Singh via a technical knockout at 3:02 of the opening round.
I can't believe
it was his first appearance since he announced his retirement after he knocked out Pedro Rizzo in 2012. So, Fedor beat the tomato can that was put out in front of him.
I can't believe
it. Good for him. Good for him. Really. Man. I'm just disgusted.
No, you have to look up. You have to watch the fight, man. You have to watch the fight with Tape and Garcia. You've got to see the just go to. I think it's on Bleacher Report and watch they got little clips of it, and it's just I don't even know how to say it, man. It's just wow.
I mean, all the pomp and circumstance the Pride had, they tried to make this a big deal, and to me, it's not. Don't care. I mean, King Mo came out a Bellator fighter and won that light heavyweight.
Can I just read you some tweets?
Sure, I love tweets.
Now, this is for the women's fight that we said, okay?
Okay.
And now you have to remember, to be fair, and I'll say this beforehand, both women making their MMA debuts.
Ah.
Okay?
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Bloody Elbow says, and we have chaos. #Ryzen. Adam Martin at MMA Adam Martin says, ha ha ha, that was awesome. I'm dying of laughter over here, guys. Jeremy Botter from Bleacher Report says, MMA gets no lower than what we just witnessed.
Jeez.
Let's see here. Mike Bowen, MMA.
These are all really good MMA writers, by the way.
Well, that was insane and ridiculous.
And not in a good way.
No. It says good MMA is better than bad MMA, and then it's got a bunch of less than signs. Mediocre MMA. That's from Steven Rondina. No denying the entertainment y'all just got out of Garcia versus Tapa.
Yeah, boy.
And then they're calling her her back fist the Sound of Music back fist.
Wow.
They hit her with the Sound of Music back fist, and they've got memes and everything.
That's a thing. Yeah. That is certainly a thing.
Vinny, I can't say his last name, Magahays.
Okay.
At Vinny MMA says, that's real sports entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. Freak show at its best. I love it.
See, this is why I'm not covering the Risen stuff unless it's on the podcast, because to me it's not. We got more important things to cover.
Yeah.
Than the sideshow that this is. Sorry.
Yep.
That's what it is. Like Jimmy Manua, who I just talked about. It's just reported that he's out of Fight Night 83.
I just saw that.
Like there are more important stuff to talk about instead of Fedor beating up some dude that nobody knows who had a 2-1 record, who had in MMA, the kickboxing champion, and just coming out there for a $3 million payday.
Yep.
Find the UFC and then talk to me. All right. And then also use your this is half of them were Bellator fighters.
Yeah,
which
they're using the same.
I mean, Bellator is as relevant to us as, well, the Dada 5000 Kimbo Slice and Royce Gracie Ken Shamrock fights they're having. Like, let's get real here, people. Sorry, we're gonna cover the real stuff. And speaking of the real stuff, UFC 195, January 2nd, this Saturday, Carlos Condit and Robbie Lawler for the UFC welterweight title. Man, this is going to be fun, isn't it?
What?
A ballet of violence is coming our way.
The fireworks are going to go off 2 days late.
At the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. We both wrote articles that you can find on fullmountainmma.com. I covered how Carlos Condit beats Robbie Lawler. You covered how Lawler retains his title. Sean, I'll give you the floor first. How does Robbie Lawler beat Carlos Condit?
Well, one of the things that, again, I did a lot of trying to look at the numbers and the research and everything that we always do here. But one thing that stuck out to me was that, when you look at, I guess you could take a common opponent, which was Johnny Hendricks. And when you looked at them with the grappling and everything, I mean, Lawler, not that he's, known for his, grappling and everything, but he has landed 16 to 20 attempts in UFC. 80% accuracy. And when he fought Johnny Hendricks the 2 times, he stuffed him. He got taken down 7 times out of 27 attempts. So that's 20 times he stuffed him in the 2 fights, 10 rounds, okay?
And Lawler stuffed Hendricks that many times, given the fact that Hendricks is
an all-American wrestler.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, so he can and now Condit, on the other hand, they did a 3-round fight, 12 takedowns out of 15 attempts. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he took him down at will almost, So I think that's one of the areas, that he's got, not, one of the areas where he can get him. Also, I thought, I mean, I know, Condit is dangerous with the strike, with his kicks and things like that. But, when you look at the striking from Lawler, I mean, look what he did with McDonald. I mean, he collapsed his nose and everything else. I mean.
But the man's spirit.
Yeah, and one of the things that like I saw it, I guess, at the end of the fight with McDonald, but I never thought about it, is that his longtime coach, Matt Pena, retired.
Yeah. So
he's got a new coach. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to change anything or if he just, does anything, differently as far as that goes. But 21 wins by finishes, 81% finish rate. And his toughness. I mean, if it's not on display in the McDonald fight, which we discussed earlier here in the TFM Live podcast, I don't know what else is out there. I mean, I don't even know if Lawler comes in with a game plan. I was like, if he can execute a good game plan and focus on the task without getting too aggressive and falling into Condit's, traps and things like that. But I don't know. Every time I look at a Lawler fight, it just seems like he just goes in there and just tries to beat the person up more than he's getting beat up. And I don't know if that's going to work this time, but I think we can go in with a good game plan, focus on task at hand, not get too aggressive, make no mistakes. Bruce Buffer at the end will say the winner, and still UFC welterweight champion, ruthless Robbie Lawler. See, that's what I got.
So you believe Lawler retains?
I do.
Okay. This is perfect because I disagree with you. I think Carlos Condit wins.
I knew you would,
and I'll tell you why. and we write these articles as analysis pieces more than because we obviously agree and disagree based on certain matchups, stuff like that. But truthfully here, I believe Carlos Condit is going to win based on a couple things that you just said there. One of the things Carlos Condit has to do, as you mentioned, he has to stay off his back. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's had 13 of his wins coming from submissions, and he's decent off his back. But he's most dangerous up, moving, swinging back and forth. He has to be able to stay up. That's the first thing. Because, like you mentioned before, Lawler was a wrestler to start off his career, too. I mean, he's a dude who now just stands and bangs and throws.
Yeah.
But he was a wrestler to start off his career. It's not like that just left him. Mm-hmm. That's where all his bases from all of his MMA work.
It's in that back pocket.
Yeah, it's that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lawler comes out. What Condit has to do is frustrate Robbie Lawler. He has to move. He has to, he talked about it. He's one of the guys on the movement bandwagon, a la Conor McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
So Condit has to stay in and out of range. He has to stay off the ground, because if he does not stay off the ground, he will look like Josh Koscheck did against Robbie Lawler. And Josh Koscheck was pinned against the cage with fists flying into his face. You don't want to be there. You have to stay away from Lawler's vicious hands, because like you said, he's a brawler. He may not even have a game plan. He's going to come out and beat you up. But if he moves in and out of range correctly, Carlos Condit has a real shot here, because changing angles, sticking in move, Lawler's going to be in headhunting mode. That's the way he is. He's just wired. He's like a velociraptor. He's going to attack. He's going to attack, and he's going to attack some more. That's why when you saw early on in that fight against Rory McDonald, he was getting hit by technique, and he was getting hit by these different little things that he was pulling out. And as the fight wore on and McDonald wore down, it just became a brawl between the two guys, and Lawler obviously dominant in that sense. He's going to have to be very quick, and he has to be a blur, which is hard. But this is what Condit has the skill set to do this. He's got the kicks to do this. And the thing I point to the most is when he fought George St. Pierre, and Dan Hardy had a great breakdown of this on the UFC's YouTube page as well. He had GSP all but done at one point in that fight, because they were in the clinch kind of close. GSP had his right hand up guarding his head. Condit ducks after St. Pierre throws a punch, and he's easily susceptible to a knee there. Like, somebody could catch his knee, bang him out, mouthpiece fly out, teeth fly out. Like, it could have been bad. But recognizing the position that GSP was in, he couldn't throw that knee. Condit kind of ducks down and then comes up, and instead of coming up with like a right hook or a straight jab or an uppercut, he comes up with a kick out of nowhere and then throws an elbow. So his unorthodox ability, I think, fits perfectly to Lawler's unpredictability and just that headhunting kind of style. If he can kind of come out of nowhere and catch him leaning, essentially. I mean, not Aldo leaning against McGregor kind of leaning, but if he catches him leaning and he catches him in a bad spot, Condit can kind of rush him, and if he can pounce. Just like Lawler is in the ground and pound, those elbows from Condit could easily end this fight. So that's why I think Condit's got a real chance here. Do I think the fight goes to distance regardless? Hell no.
Okay, we agree on that.
That's something we definitely agree on. Somebody's going down. But do I think Carlos Condit's got a real shot? Absolutely. The Natural Born Killer has that moniker for a reason.
Yeah.
And if he can, because what he'll have to do, I think Lawler's got a better shot at knocking out Condit earlier. I think Condit rounds 3 through 5 has a better chance of dropping Lawler because of the punishment that Lawler takes. Because Condit's going to have to kind of stick and move.
Yep. And that's what I was trying to say with when you said the frustration. I think that's where Lawler's got to keep his wits with him, because early, that's what he's going to do. He's going to get in there, he's going to stick and get out and move around and everything else like that. Lawler's got to wait for his opportunity, land that one big one, and then pounce.
Yeah.
He can't sit there and dance and get frustrated and then start swinging for the fences. If he does, just like you said, that's where I think the opening opens for Condit, and it could be a long night for Lawler.
It's a great fight. It's a great fight.
Isn't it funny? It's going to be a game plan fight again. It really is. It's going to come down to, which camp has got their fighter more prepared. Honestly, it's going to be, can Lawler's camp tell him to focus enough to where what Condit's going to do? He's going to come in, he's going to try to frustrate you, so you make that mistake, and he's going to unload on you. You have to wait for him to make that mistake, or kind of watch how he's doing his movement and land that one punch where you kind of get him backpedaling a little bit and pounce, because like we say, this fight's not going the distance. I do not see it going the distance. If it does, it will surprise me immensely, and I would like to see how both men are standing if it does go the distance.
Yeah. It's American Top Team against Jackson Wink, and fantastic fight camps, and it's just about. I think it really comes down to, does Lawler hold his nerve?
Yeah,
because he at his basis has more of an overall game to beat Condit. He should be the favorite here. He is the champion. He should have that mantra about him. But Condit, similar to the way McGregor fights, is looking for that little spot. And if he can move and stay away, and as dumb as that sounds from a fighter's perspective, like, oh, he's going to run around and move and try to duck out of the way instead of, like, he needs to pick his spots. That's the way you do this. And you come out with these unorthodox moves where you're ducking down and throwing a kick, or you're throwing elbows in the clinch and you're throwing elbows instead of punches. And this is what Condit does. And for me, I think he gets the upset here. And it's regardless, it's going to be an amazing fight to watch. The rest of the card isn't star-studded by any stretch. Joseph Duffy and Dustin Poirier is on the Fight Pass prelims at 6:30, so that fight will probably go around around 7:30. That's the main event of the Fight Pass prelims. The other fight that we should talk about here, Stipe Miocic and Andrei Arlovski in a heavyweight number one contenders match, I could say. You think at this point?
Yeah, I would think the winner would be probably the next in line unless something crazy happens where Jones jumps up or something like that. I would say yes.
What are your thoughts on this one? Because, Miocic pulls out of the Ben Rothwell fight, gets a better fight in Arlovski as number 2 and number 3 in the heavyweight division. Last time we saw Andrei Arlovski, he looked awful against Frank Mir. So what do you like? What's the play here? What do you see happening?
Looking at the last fight from Arlovski, I think it's going to be more of the same, man. I think he's fighting not to lose right now. I just think he thinks, hey, if I can keep stringing these wins together, they're going to have to give me a title shot. And it's not matter you win. In the heavyweights right now, it doesn't matter. If you look back at some of these fights that have happened, what was the last, I guess, besides the title fight, the last heavyweight match that really lived up to what we thought would happen? It just seems like everybody's just trying to fight for position and position themselves for the next shot at the title, and it's leading to some very boring fights.
With the exception of Overeem and Dos Santos, where Overeem kind of threw himself into the conversation.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that one. That just happened a week ago.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of fights.
It's a short memory. I'm sorry, short-term memory. I forgot about that.
Arlovski's running on a fight win streak right now, 4 in a row. Brendan Schaub, Bigfoot, Travis Brown, and Frank Mir.
Yep.
I think he needs to show out here. I think we need to see the Arlovski from the Travis Brown fight, because Miocic is a terrific wrestler, and Miocic is not the most thrilling fighter, but remember, he did knock out Mark Hunt the last time he fought in May. So I don't know what this. I'll pick Arlovski. Miocic hasn't thrilled me, and by any stretch, and he's cultivated that opinion with a lot of people. He beats Arlovski, I'll give him the title shot. It's fine. I'll give you that. But when you look at this list, Cowboy Roy Nelson, Gabriel Gonzaga, Fabio Maldonado, who, according to Rampage Jackson, is Balbabato. He couldn't even say his name right every time he was fighting him. And he was also released yesterday. He lost to Junior Dos Santos, and he beat Hunt, of course. It's been a long layoff for Miocic as well, almost a year. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully they surprise. But I've tempered my expectations for this heavyweight fight, which sucks, because heavyweight fights are supposed to be like these crazy, fun things. So hopefully these two deliver tomorrow night. That's pretty much all we got for this edition of TFM Live to close out 2015. Damn, 2015 is over already. Sean, you got anything you want to promote? Anything you want to say? Anything we missed?
No, just thank you for supporting us, the TFM Live podcast, at The Full Mount on Twitter, thefullmountmma.com on the web. I want to thank everybody for a great start in 2015, and keep up with us in 2016. A lot more to come.
Oh, yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet. 2015 was just a start. We got plenty more coming in the next year. 195 should be fun. 196 will be fun. 197, wherever they put it. I mean, I'm excited for the new year in mixed martial arts, and it's going to kick off with a bang with Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit on Saturday night. So again, thank you guys for listening. At The Full Mount, thefullmountmma.com. If you want to read our articles explaining why, a little more in depth than we just went in talking about Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit. At The Full Mount, at bcoyle11 for me on Twitter. I'm always down to argue anything, pretty much. At SS Sports Talk. Sean, a happy new year to you. Enjoy the beautiful South Florida weather, because I don't have that.
Well, I was going to say same to you, but minus the enjoy the beautiful weather part. Have a good new year, man.
Thanks, man. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next year on TFM Live, the official podcast of thefullmountmma.com.
The TFM Live podcast is brought to you by thefullmountmma.com. Check us out on Twitter at thefullmount.